Donald Trump's financial crisis. Former president cannot raise the nearly $500 million bond that the court is demanding in the New York civil fraud case. That could lead to the state attorney general's office seizing some of his assets to pay the bill. Aaron Katersky starts us off. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, George. Donald Trump boasts of owning priceless properties he has called the Mona Lisas of real estate. But this morning he says he cannot come up with the money he needs to keep his portfolio intact. This morning, Donald Trump is unable to secure a bond to cover the nearly $500 million he owes after a judge held him liable for fraud.
Will appeal, will be successful.
His lawyers said Trump is facing insurmountable difficulties. He lacks enough cash to obtain a bond so big, and more than 30 insurance companies refuse to accept his real estate as collateral. His attorneys argued Trump shouldn't be forced to sell any property. Raising money through a fire sale, they said, would result in irrecoverable losses if his appeal succeeds.
You've got to pony up the bond amount in order to appeal it. If you don't do that, then one, you're not going to appeal, and you've conceded you've lost.
Trump asked a court to either waive the requirement for a bond while he appeals or allow him to post something smaller, saying a $464 million bond is a practical impossibility. But if the court says no, and Trump fails to secure a bond by next week, New York Attorney General Letitia James told ABC News she is prepared to take ownership of Trump's assets.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Seizing real estate is not a quick process, but the Attorney General told us she is determined to make sure Trump pays. And George, there is also news this morning about the criminal case here in New York that Trump faces. The judge has sided with prosecutors and will allow testimony from two key witnesses, Trump's former fixer Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, the recipient of the $130,000 hush payment at the center of the case. George?
And Aaron, he said the Access Hollywood tape could be talked about but not played to the jurors.
That's right. The prosecutors from the Manhattan DA's office can reference the tape and Trump talking about grabbing women, but the jury will not hear it in its entirety unless the defense opens the door, George.
Okay, Aaron Katersky, thanks. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. Dan, let me begin with you. So Trump's lawyers are saying either suspend the bond or reduce it. What are the chances of him getting that?
It's unlikely. There's going to have to be something worked out here, meaning either he's going to have to sell assets. Typically, that's what would happen in a situation like this, right? You owe the money, you have the assets, you sell the assets. Apparently, Donald Trump doesn't want to sell the assets. So what happens next? Either he's going to have to work out a deal with the attorney general, or he's going to have to get someone else who's going to help him put up the money. Or in the end, what's going to happen is she will move forward to seize his assets. And as Aaron correctly points out, that is not an easy or quick process. That would be very complicated, would take some time for that process to begin.
But it could begin as soon as Monday.
It could begin as soon as Monday. But the execution of that process of moving forward for forfeiture and seizure of assets is not easy.
What about the idea, and it's been floated a bit, that he might have to declare bankruptcy?
Look, that's possible, but I think that that's unlikely as well here. Look, his fundamental argument seems to be at this point a constitutional one, right? He's saying, referring to the excessive fines clause of the Eighth Amendment. The problem with that argument as a fundamental constitutional argument is the Eighth Amendment applies to criminal cases. It applies to excessive bail, cruel and unusual punishment. That's where the excessive fine language lives in the Eighth Amendment. And it's supposed to apply when someone is convicted of or accused of a crime. Here you're just talking about civil money damages, and he's just saying it's too much. Does he have a chance to get this reduced on appeal? Absolutely. But until then, he's got to figure out a way to put up this amount.
Okay, let's bring in our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. Meantime, John, out on the campaign trail, Trump's talks increasingly circling around the themes of revenge and retribution.
Yeah, George, and in a series of posts on his social media platform, he has talked about prosecuting and putting in jail Liz Cheney and the other members of the January 6th committee, also one of the key witnesses that appeared before that committee. And he's doing this, George, at the very time that he is lauding the people that attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6th as unbelievable patriots. He's talking about pardoning them on his first day in office. So he's talking about prosecuting the people that investigated January 6th and pardoning those that attacked the Capitol. It's really an extraordinary series of posts. You might dismiss it if you weren't a presidential candidate as the ranting of a crazy person on social media, but it's the beating heart of his campaign. It's about revenge, retribution. That's what his campaign is all about, and now we're increasingly seeing it on the campaign trail.
John Carl, Dan Abrams, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.